So climate change is not just about, the seas are rising, but the fact that when the seas rise, that affects where land is, right? So sea level rise takes away territory. So extreme events like hurricanes or any kind of like sudden flooding, things like that. So that is expected to get more intense. So when we have a hurricane, it's going to be stronger and more often. Those will happen more often. And when we talk about migration, whether it's people who are displaced or people who move because of, like we said, farmers and things like that, it's very similar to climate change in terms of solutions. There's two things. There's mitigation. So there's decreasing our greenhouse gas emissions to lower the eventual temperature rise and all of these things like sea level rise for the future. And then there's adaptation. So the fact that a lot of these impacts are already irreversible. Right? So you have to kind of have a two-pronged approach. And it's the same with migration. We want to prevent people being displaced. We want to prevent extreme coastal erosion and even more drought and more natural disasters. And that's how you prevent by lowering your emissions and making smart environmental choices. But then we have to face the reality that it's already happening. People are already migrating, and there's certain things that are happening to our world that are not reversible. We cannot change that's happening. The sea is, there are glaciers that have melted, and we can't put them back together. Once it's broke, you cannot put it back together. So you have to take into that account with migration. But there are people who are going to have to leave, and there are people who are moving right now. So then the other part of the solution is making sure that people are protected when they move. So making sure that we have legal mechanisms, which is like practical, shelters, or making sure that there's early warning systems. When there's a natural disaster, people know where to go and that it's happening and to get out. Stuff like that. But then there's also making sure that people are relocated from areas that we know are going to disappear. Right? Again, those places that are irreversibly damaged. There's things that are happening in the ocean that we know will happen in 10 years. We just don't feel it yet. Everybody wants, of course, to be safe. And well-being is such a relative concept. So, what I see is my level of well-being that I would aspire to is maybe very different than what someone might say in Senegal.
Right.
Or not,
Yeah. It's relative.
But it's relative. So one of the things that's so interesting about climate change is everybody has a place, right?
Yes.
Every discipline has a place.
We always talk about this always.
So but the thing of it is that it's so great because every time I'm in a room, whether it's with policymakers, whether it's in negotiations, or whether it's an academic conference, everybody has a different background and something that they can contribute from their field. But I think then my advice is to then also recognize the contributions of others. So if you're a scientific, like a hard sciences, right, like an engineer, get to know a little bit about the social science aspect of it, about the political side of it.
Yeah.
Because it's great if you come in with this brilliant engineering idea, but if you don't understand how to get that through government, or how to get that financed, or how to get an international organization the way an international organization works, or, it can be brilliant, but it's not going to work. And it's the same in reverse from the social sciences. We can have great ideas about how people respond with migration, how people migrate, why they migrate, where they go, etc. But I can't create good solutions if I don't understand the environmental side of it. So my advice for students is always to kind of, pick your specialty, but always see the value of the others, because it only makes your work eventually stronger, and on a practical side makes you much more hireable, because if you can only produce a global climate model, but you don't know what that means for people, then what's the value there? What are you bringing?